Welcome to Super Simple Security Principles. I'm Nick Jackson and I want to love computers. They don't love me back. I'm learning how to stay safe online from my good buddy and master guardian, Makani Mason. Woo! He wrote his first computer program at the age of 6, sealing his fate as a computer geek. That's it. He knows his stuff, folks. Now he spends his time teaching people like me and you how to stay ahead of the digital threats we face and those bad guys. He keeps it simple and we love it. Learn along with me each week. I'll ask the questions and make sure he keeps it super relevant and super simple for us. If I can do it, you can do it too. This is episode 67, Security Stack, 4 Phases. Okay, so it's me, Squish, again. Remember, the security stacks, well, they have phases apparently. So Makani's going to explain those phases. He will explain how they help us, and bonus, guess what? We get to find out which is the most important. So I'm pretty pumped about this. That said, this is why I trust Makani real quick when it comes to the 4 phases. He always is thinking way ahead. I love chess, but I refuse to play with him because the one time I did, he crushed me. He was so far ahead. I was like, he knew what I was going to do. So, guys, trust me, when it comes to phases and formulating, he's your guy. So, with no further ado, here's the questions we'll be answering in today's episode. What are the 4 phases in a security stack? How do they help us? Which one is the most important? Let's go. So, where do we start, man?
Well, we're going to start with a little bit of a visual image.
All right.
So we've been talking about, building a security stack, right?
Yeah.
Layer by layer. Now, though, I want to tweak your vision of that a little bit. We're not changing the name, but just think about this stack as a brick wall. Okay? Now, naturally, we start from the bottom up, as we've discussed, right? The foundation, the most important layers at the bottom.
Yeah.
But with this new vision of a brick wall, each of these rows that we're building in the stack is not composed of a single brick. Just as there are multiple rows, there are also multiple phases, okay, or columns.
Oh, okay. Okay, I like the columns. So there's multiple columns within each. Okay.
Yeah, so we're building up from the bottom, but we're also building left to right through the 4 phases.
Okay.
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 So
kind of like building the walls, right? Like going
yeah, right.
around.
Like if you well, and if you were laying bricks, right, you'd go do, you'd go left to
Yeah.
right on the bottommost layer, and then you'd go left to right on the next most layer. So you're working your way up, but you're also working your way left to right.
Perfect.
Right?
I
Does that
love
make
it.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes total sense.
And so, yeah, okay. So the 4 phases are learn, detect, no, excuse me, learn, prevent, detect, and repair.
Okay.
And those phases are a way to think about how we protect ourselves basically at every point in time. From the most
Yeah.
basic awareness, where we're just learning about the existence of an attack, right? That's our leftmost point, all the way through to the very most right point where, okay, we failed and we got, bitten by the attack, and now we've got to recover from it.
Right.
So a full security stack is going to include all 4 of those phases.
Okay.
Okay, with me so far? You look like
Yep.
you're thinking at least. Don't look confused. You just look
thinking.
like kind of right.
I'm formulating. I'm seeing how this is molding. I'm seeing how this is taking shape, right?
Okay.
So
Cool.
I'm
Well,
with you. We're totally
okay.
there.
Okay, good. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that series that we did on home networks recently,
Okay. Yeah.
and that's how, as we're explaining each of the phases, we're going to give a little bit of, concreteness, specificity to this, some detail, so we can make sense of the phase a little bit more. Does that sound good?
That sounds great. So we're basically going to take with these phases and we're going to use what we learned in maybe episodes 50 through 60
Yeah.
and how to pair them together. Is that right?
Yeah. Well,
Or
how do I?
create a link or
So we're going to use those as kind of our source material for how we're explaining the phases.
oh, perfect. Even easier. Okay, great. I
Yeah.
love it.
And then what we'll do after we're done with this kind of introduction is then we're going to build security stacks. We'll build 4 security stacks in total. Through
Okay.
obviously this is going to take a lot of episodes,
Yeah.
and we'll be walking through this formula, whatever we end up naming it,
Yeah. Yep. To be
with the
determined.
phases, exactly the phases, the questions, and the layers.
Yeah.
And so we'll get a lot of practice with this, because yeah, this is our system that people need to learn, and we'll help them build it as well. But anyway,
Perfect.
I think about the big picture a lot, so we're gonna bring it back to just this little part for now. So
Perfect. So
the
now we're gonna hone in, right?
yeah,
Okay.
so part of the ordering, so just like with the stacks, we talked about the ordering from bottom to top represents kind of how fundamental and important it is, and how commonly it's going to be applied. For example, would be another way of, everybody needs the very foundational layer, but maybe only 10% of people need the top optional layer. And so you have a generic stack, and then you only take certain pieces out of it. So anyway, the up to down
That makes
stuff
sense.
represents,
I'm
okay,
kind of like
yeah,
thinking the hierarchy of like army or military, you've got your, you know, certain star generals, you've got your captains, whatever, and you go to certain leaders first, and yeah, you kind of work your way up, right? Not
uh,
everybody needs to visit with a 4-star general, but maybe the president of the United States might need to.
yeah, no, I like you bring it back to the army thing. I would actually kind of say it this way: is like it depends on the war.
Oh,
Maybe in a
okay.
particular war you need this kind of soldier, but in a different kind of war you don't,
Oh, gotcha. Okay, perfect. Perfect.
right? And
I like
so
that. That's
your
easy.
general war stack has all this set of, anyway. Well, well, that was probably a little bit of a funny digression. So the
Sorry.
main point is I was trying. No, dude, not yours, just me. Like, it was my digression, really, because what I'm trying to get across is, so there's this bottom to top notion, right?
Yes. Yep.
And
Gotcha.
that kind of represents fundamental, important, how common, whatever. But then
Okay.
this left to right is it is also, somewhat about importance, but it's more related to how an attack progresses.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. We'll just go into the next phase and kind of, yeah. So phase 1 is learn, and the slightly larger description of that is we want to understand the threat before it hits you. So learning is our absolute first line of defense for any stack.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Perfect.
So that includes it means you want to know about the common threats that you're going to face. And
Yeah.
so for home networks, for example, the biggest
Hmm.
one was the constant attacks on our router from the internet.
Right.
Right? Okay.
Those incoming
So
calls, right?
yeah. Well, and so that I consider that knowledge, that about those common attacks, a layer of security. That knowledge, that element of knowledge.
Yeah,
Does
absolutely. You
that
you
make
have to
sense?
know you have to know how and where you're about to get punched to be able to formulate an attack and a defense.
Exactly. And it gets overlooked a lot, I think, and underemphasized, because obviously knowing about it doesn't directly provide you any specific protection against the attack, right? Like it's just kind of this general thing, even though to me, having the human involved in the equation, knowing about it is the most fundamental. And so that's why it's here.
Right.
It's just sometimes it's not as talked about. And that's why I feel like it's so critical to have that in this formula. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, it makes total sense. I totally get that. Perfect. Yeah. With you.
The other aspect of learning is understanding like how the systems you're using work. So with the home networks again, we talked a little bit about how computer networks function.
Yeah. Yeah.
The role of a router, how the devices
Yep.
talk to each other using phone calls, not turning you into a network technician, but just a little bit of stuff about how the system works, enough that you can be capable of protecting your home network.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So now sometimes this awareness is enough to just keep us safe because, like, for example, with phone scams, if you know about a phone scam and you get a call, you may just hang up, and that's all it takes.
Right. Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But for home networks, in most cases, the knowledge alone, even though it's critical and fundamental and a good first phase, it's in a lot of ways preparation for phase 2, which is prevent.
Perfect.
So
okay.
Prevent is where we want to actually build a strong multi-layer defense. And in the home network case, one of those layers was our inbound firewall that's as part of our router.
Right.
Right? So that was our most fundamental, most universal, most important layer of protection for your home network.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And one of the, a little more optional ones is a guest network that we talked about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because maybe you don't have many guests, maybe you don't have many Internet of Things devices, so the guest network, it could be good, but depending on who you are, it may matter more or less.
Yeah.
Right? So it's in the possible home network security stack, but maybe your home network security stack doesn't include it, but
Correct.
maybe it does. Right?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Like I'm thinking about like my grandparents, like, or my wife's grandparents. Like they would have no need for like they have maybe
the guest
3
network's
devices. Yeah.
Right. Isn't going to buy them a lot.
Isn't going to buy them a lot. Exactly. Exactly. Like they're still loving their DVD player that doesn't connect to the internet.
Amen to that. Yeah. So, and then another one we talked about in there was the outbound firewall.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mentioned that one specifically because the outbound firewall actually functions as a layer of protection in 2 phases. Because in the next phase, and this is one that is often neglected as well, is detect. Because there we want to know when something gets past your defenses. And that's one of the main things that the outbound firewall is really uniquely strong at.
Yeah.
Okay. Like we hope that threats get stopped at the prevent phase, right?
Right. Right.
But we don't, the whole point of a layered defense is we don't just, hope and pray that they stop there. We want to not only, learn about them, and we want to do our best to prevent them, but if we can, we want to have some methods for detecting them, even if those defenses fail.
Right. Right.
Dude,
this is all clicking. This is all clicking. Digging it.
Good, because, like with the home networks, one of the things with detects is like, it's very hard to get a perfect guarantee that you're going to be able to prevent it.
Right.
But the outbound firewall, you can get, it's not perfect, but you can get really, really solid detection method that, is just not possible to get that same level of guarantee and confidence as you can
Yeah.
as prevention. So it's like, well, I'd rather stop it at prevent, but I'd also rather at least detect it if nothing else,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay.
Dude,
So,
I love
yeah,
it,
go,
man.
please.
Cause like I'm just looking at this and I'm just gonna take this like, so we got, let me see if I got it, man. Tell me if I got it. I actually am jumping in because I think I got it. So let's start with our home network security deck, right? Or how we're gonna start to build it, right? So the first thing we have to have is that knowledge, right? We have to understand where and how we could potentially be attacked, what the threats are, understanding the threats, what's, so we got that knowledge. And then from there, for some people it's a guest network, for other people it's different things, and that stack can maybe be different, tailored a little bit. But in the end, there's going to be pretty much some very similarities in these decks, but realistically it's completely tailored, and that's how we start to build it out. Is that right?
Yeah. Although you changed it to calling them decks, not stacks.
Oh, stacks, my bad.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the gaming world. My bad.
Yeah.
My bad.
Well, and I just mentioned it because it was just interesting to see your brain make that translation, right? Because, right, like, I mean, I play Magic the Gathering and, other card games where you build decks of things. So, I mean, it's not a crazy metaphor.
Do people just
And
learn that I'm a gamer a little bit?
right, exactly. You do a little bit of gaming too. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so part of the thing is too, like when I was originally envisioning it, I was just envisioning this straight security stack and in order. And ultimately, you could kind of envision it that way. The reason why I added this phase aspect is not so much in terms of ordering of like what layer you're going to worry about first, so much as you want to make sure that you account for all four of these phases of an attack in the stack
Okay.
that you build it, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
right? This is just a way of analyzing that topic, phishing or home networks or email or shopping online, whatever it is you're focusing on for the security stack. This is one of the dimensions that you want to make sure you address. You want to make sure, you think about what are the things that I need to learn, you
Yeah.
know what are the ways that I can prevent the attacks, what are the
Right.
ways I can detect if an attack occurs, and then if that does happen, I detect an attack and one hit me, then what can I do to repair it? What
Right.
can I do to recover, to restore, improve my plan for next time, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Now the ordering of like which one do I implement first, which one do I focus on first, that's kind of a different question. This is just to help us make sure we remember and account for everything instead of neglecting some of those, because
Right.
the best security stacks are going to include some stuff in all four of them.
Right.
Now, one thing though, as I was thinking about this, I realized that from left to right, the quantity of layers available to us, shrinks dramatically,
Okay.
because there's always a ton of useful stuff to learn, and there's usually a lot of preventative measures available, right? But then you get to
Hmm.
detection, and there's a lot fewer options. Repair, a lot fewer options. Usually, like, there's just not that much in the detect and repair. So
So
hopefully
as
there's at
these
least one or
phases,
two. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, you were going to restate what you're understanding I'm trying to say.
So as these phases progress, the scope of, let's say, opportunities tends to narrow. Is that right? That
Yeah, well, I probably explained it poorly. What all I mean is, so like let's take home networks, right?
Yeah.
Apply it there. There aren't a whole lot of ways that you can detect if an attack succeeded against your home network.
Hmm.
Like there's the outbound firewall. Maybe if your computer's slow, you might realize and do scan for malware, or even an automatic malware scanner might detect it. You might watch your network traffic. Like there's a handful of options, but
Yeah.
that's it. There's not like that many different choices,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Now, and repair, we didn't even talk about in home networks. Like what happens? What do you do if an attack succeeds against your home network? That's one we
Right.
didn't even cover in that 10 episodes. An example would be though is like there's software you can install that helps you remove malware from your system,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
right? So you might
Yeah.
have some malware removal software that it's already on there and it helps you clean up and get back to a safe, where your computer is safe again, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like there's a list of 10 different kinds of things that you can do and tools that you can install that you should have available and layers of protection to do the repair.
Mm. So it's the tools, the layers of protections that start to narrow down.
Yeah,
The Okay. Because at the
yeah,
beginning we have so many tools and resources to use to protect, but then
yes,
to indicate we might not have as many tools to let us know there's a threat. And then we might even have fewer tools to repair what was damaged.
yeah. And this isn't necessarily a critical concept to really remember anything. It was just an observation I was thinking about because I think sometimes it leads us to, because there's so few. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it means sometimes we get more attention on those because there's so few options. But I was just thinking of ways of which of the phases might get neglected, and I'm not sure for different people, but it kind of goes back to answering the opening question number 3.
Yeah.
Which one's most important? And that was, I throw in one of these every once in a while as a trick question
Yeah.
because the choices are fewer, right? So in a way, you could say detect and repair is less important, but I wouldn't say that. It just means there are fewer choices you have available.
Yeah.
Like, the most secure and bulletproof security stacks are going to have at least one defense in all of the phases. Go
Right.
ahead. I could see you had a thought there.
Yeah, I did. I was gonna try and guess what the most important,
Oh,
you know, the four phases and which one is the most important. And I was gonna say, wouldn't it be phase one? Because if we have all these available options to build us great security, as we build our knowledge, as we start to understand our threats, as we start to analyze each individual area, like that's why we layer up, right? We've got all these options to layer up. Like we could get this as thick as we wanted if we wanted to. Like we could really completely isolate ourselves in essence if we wanted to, you know?
yeah.
And 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 so like that's what my guess would have been based off of those thoughts. Now go ahead and correct me.
No, well, and like I said, it was a trick question because they're all kind of important. But in a lot of ways, I agree with you. I
Okay.
mean, if I was going to pick one layer, if I was actually going to pick a favorite or a most important one, I would absolutely pick learn, because the thing is also, as you go to and we'll talk about this more in the layer types, the six
Hmm.
layer types. But the tools you have and all these other things, they change a lot more. But the more knowledge and stuff that you have yourself, the more powerful it is. I mean, think about it like with exercising, for example, or even for our army one, the thing you're
Yeah.
going to care about most is the human element, and how much do you know about computers and these threats and stuff. Like, that's where I want the focus is. I want to improve my skills, my habits, my knowledge, because that's going to naturally and automatically not only persist as tools change, as technology changes, but it will empower all the tools and things I use. you
Yeah.
know if you know how to exercise, you know how your body works, for example, then you could use dumbbells, you could use straps, you could use whatever a lot more effectively than if you have no idea of how your muscles work, for example.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely would pick knowledge, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Awesome.
that's all for today. We'll yeah, unless you got any other questions. I don't know. Did it make sense by the end? Felt
Oh
a little more
yeah,
scattered on this one.
totally clicking. Well,
Okay.
I helped derail, and we both derailed and digressed a couple of times, but what happened is by the end it made sense to me. It really kind of clicked, right? I get what we're trying to build here. I really do think that our listeners at the end of the day are going to understand why it is so important to have these tools, these resources, these strategies, understanding the 4 phases, and to build your security stacks. Like, this is perfect illustration of why we need that education and all of it. I love it, man. That was a killer episode. Do we get a call to action though? That was my one question.
Yeah. And this is, as with all the episodes in this one, is, a call for help.
Yeah.
Help me build a system that's going to work for you. And, are the 4 phases, this is my question, are the 4 phases, learn, prevent, detect, and repair, are they sufficiently simple and clear to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, again, I want to emphasize, this is the first time, literally, that I'm teaching anybody this, because, I just came up with all this stuff,
Right.
trying to formalize all the knowledge in my head into a system that we can use to empower people and help. And
Yeah.
so, it's not like I've ever taught anybody any of these things I'm absolutely confident that, there's going to be some refinements, improvements, if in how we explain it, if nothing else,
Right. Right.
metaphors. And because I really like your Army one, I think we could totally tie that in as one possible way we explain to people, because I think there were a lot of really cool aspects there. So anyway, just, yeah, very interested in hearing any thoughts about how this is coming across to people right now with where
Yeah.
we are. So,
Yeah, we're really going to lean on our listeners, our viewers. Let us know, you know. We've got links to everything you can possibly reach us on. We're not trying to, keep our contact or how to reach us or get a hold of us. Get us up on the forum. Anything
yeah.
you want, let us know.
Yeah, no, thank you. Forum. I got to always remind people of that, because there are a lot of, there's different ways for different podcasts, right? Ours
Right.
is the forum. That is our method of contacting us. So,
Yep. Love to hear from you. So,
yep. Okay, you want to remind
dude,
them what we're going to talk about next episode?
next episode. This is what I love, man. You've given me an infinite way to tease them, because next week we're going to be discussing the second part of the to be determined stack formula with the 5 questions. So as we discussed, remember, going back a couple episodes, we had 3D and we had the 4 phases, and now we're going to be talking about the 5 questions. Okay, so tune in. We'll keep it super simple. And again, thank you for listening. That was an awesome show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you ready to take action and wondering where to start? Get my Bulletproof My Identity Starter Kit for free. The 7 most vital layers of protection everyone needs. I'll send you one step at a time and help you if you get stuck. Just go to bulletproofmyid.com and enter your name and email, and I will send you the first step. Again, that's bulletproofmyid.com.